Dan untuk mengulas terkait sustainability bisnis startup, saat ini di studio CNBC Indonesia telah hadir bersama kami Martyn Terpilowski, founder and investor of Bhumi Varta Technology. Hello Martyn, how are you?
Good morning. I'm fine, thank you. Thank you for having me on today.
Thank you so much for being here in CNBC Indonesia. So we're talking about sustainability of startup businesses. So we see that even before the pandemics, there are already a lot of problems going on, especially in startups. People are watching about their growth, their valuations going really well, really big. And then in 2022, something flipping back again. The tech bubble burst going on, a lot of layoffs and happening. So tell us about your opinion about it.
Well, I mean, people who know me will know that since I arrived here in 2018, I've been a bit surprised by the market, in the startup market. Coming from a listed securities background, the valuations didn't make a lot of sense to me. So I didn't really understand where a lot of it came from, and I could see there was potential problems, where if interest rates go up, everyone's got a problem. And surprisingly to me, no one seemed to have really planned this and looked at it. And things were getting out of control. You know, valuing companies without revenue, based on the potential market size, is not really possible when there's multiple competitors in a market space and everybody is just chasing the same clients. Okay. It's kind of a race to the bottom with promotions, discounts, and as we've seen, long term it won't work. So, I think in some respect it's necessary to have some kind of organization of this and people to start realizing about business fundamentals, because you can't run a business like a lot of these businesses have been getting run. And people now are all talking about sustainability. Yeah. But I remember 1 year ago talking to some of the venture capital guys, and they thought I was crazy trying to do a sustainable business.
Just a year ago.
Yeah, just a year ago, everybody was like growth at all costs, and now I see the same people talking about sustainability. There's no by the way, I was wrong or anything. So a lot of it has been highly predictable. I think if you talk to listed security guys or people outside that venture capital startup world. I think a lot of people predicted this. Yeah. The issue is here that world has got the most, people see that world most. The startup world is very, prevalent here. So, the technology is very prevalent here. So we see it a lot of positives, but nobody's actually maybe questioned in the last few years, how's this actually happening? Where's the valuation going to come from long term? Yeah. Are we building companies for generations, or are we building companies to make a fast buck? Because, in some respects, it's become a game of pass the bag. Yeah. Get this valuation up, sell it to someone. So if you're going to have a company and you have a dream to have a company for a generational company, your aims were very different than somebody who plans to pass the bag. So, if your plan is to get rid of that business in 5 years or 2 years or whatever, you don't really care about the long-term problems. You just want to pass this to somebody else and move on. So that, as a whole business model, to me, is quite dangerous. Yeah. So I've seen that coming, and I think sustainability is now coming in, but I think it's very difficult for a lot of companies to do that because their spending is so high. They've never run effective balance sheets.
But you mentioned it just earlier that people already expecting it, people already saw it coming. But why is this, the rolling ball keeps on continuing, but until this lesson is coming in? Any lesson about fundamental and sustainability?
Yeah, I mean, did people see it coming? I don't know. I think a lot of people had been drinking the Kool-Aid for too long. There's a lot of confirmation theory in startup world. Everybody goes to the same groups. Everyone networks together. There's very few people. Like myself, I've been quite outspoken, disagreeing with the whole model. The other people I know who are outspoken would not come on television and do it, because of who else is involved on the other side, right? Whereas from my background in capital markets and private banking, people have different opinions, and that's fine. But here, people don't want to be seen to be like, that guy who's from that area, that group is wrong. So there's very little people. So there's a lot of confirmation theory. People go to networking groups, and everyone's like, yeah, we're doing really good. And I'm also kind of shocked that people suddenly, this interest rate's gone up, and industry professionals are coming on television saying we didn't see that coming. I don't think you should be admitting that, to be honest. I don't understand how that happened. We run a very different business. And I think people outside that kind of bubble did see it coming. I think if you talk to people in Singapore, Tokyo, capital markets guys, everyone started taking risk off quite a while ago. Yeah. And we saw companies last year with very low revenue raising 20, 30, 40, $50 million. And of course, it's not really sustainable. It doesn't make any actual sense if you look at it correctly.
Yeah. So after this bubble burst, lesson learned. So people are more seeing about the fundamental of the business and also its sustainability. How do you see the 2023 and 2024 in the world of startups?
Yeah, I mean, globally, Indonesia is no different. Globally, we've seen the same thing. We've seen people get into startup business that basically only got into it maybe because they saw a way to make quick money. So when the VC and startup world started, there was very few opportunities and very few, there was very few funds and very few opportunities. Now, not just here, but globally, anyone maybe from a wealthy family or from good connections want to do either startup or VC. So you've got too many people doing it. That's the problem. Like everybody wants to be a footballer or a rock star, but not everybody can be a footballer or a rock star. And we've got a situation where everybody wants to do something. So there's a massive oversupply. There's an oversupply of ideas, which many of them are the same. There's an oversupply of businesses, and there's an oversupply of capital. There is way too much capital being thrown around, and having to allocate this money is part of the problem, because you're allocating this money even to direct competitors. Yeah. So some funds are investing in competitors, which to me is just outrageous. It's like me suddenly putting money into one of my competitors. It doesn't make sense. So I think globally there's going to be a lot of, I think there's going to be a lot of soul searching. I think people are going to have to admit they're wrong. I still see some people powering on through, investing, because there's no regulation in the venture capital world. A lot of it is, has been invested with my friends. It's that kind of business, right? There's going to have to be far more risk management, far more due diligence. It's going to have to be more sensible. If you're going to run listed equity businesses, you have to have 10 to 20 years experience. Yeah. Here, the people running these businesses don't have the experience. They haven't got the background doing it. They might not like me saying that because I say it regularly, because I have, a track record of making money for clients in listed business. People might not like me saying it, but, just because you know somebody doesn't necessarily qualify you to run $500 million. And that's not just here, that's happened globally. It's happened different groups, but it's happened globally. So it's happened in India, it's even happened in the US. And I think regulation would help, but I don't see it happening, where we get to a situation where the people managing the money understand what they're doing, and not everybody can do it. Acceptance that, not everybody can be a success at doing anything.
I like how you say you have to be more sensible and you have to be more mindful about what's going on later, and then it becomes another, changing trajectory of the world startup is going on, probably forward. And because we're here talking about sustainability and the fundamental business of a startup, you said about building a business that lasted for generations, Martyn. So can you please explain a little bit about the key of getting into fundamental and also a sustainable business?
Well, it's a lot harder because, what we do is B2B. So it's very difficult, because I understand why the venture guys don't get involved, because the challenge of getting a new B2B software accepted by the market is very difficult. However, there is actually revenue to be made there, and the costs are a lot lower. So you're not paying huge amounts of money on marketing costs, and things like that. So I think the idea, you can't launch a business just on the potential market size, because some of these businesses that have been digitalizing the warungs, etc. I mean, where's the research come to do this? Because even in the north of England, the mum and papa stores want cash because they don't want to pay tax. They don't want to put it through the books. So the idea that everybody wants digitalizing, when people talk about financial inclusion, that's great, but can you make money from it? Because I would have thought the biggest banks would have done it already if there's money to be made there. Like the biggest, the biggest mini market companies would have done 15-minute grocery deliveries if they could make money doing it, right? So I think people have got to look at the big people in the market, especially here. The big guys know what they're doing, right? They've built generational companies, So maybe their kids are now more in the startup world, but if they talk to their parents have built generational companies. So
but how about, do you think about the dreams that we can David versus Goliath, and then there's this, David going on, and then the small companies also wants to flourish?
I understand.
Is that the dreams that
it is a dream? But if you look at the startup world in Indonesia, it's many of the same people. So if we actually look at the reality, it's a small group of people in the startup world in Indonesia. Jakarta International School, etc. Right? We're not seeing David getting involved in startup world in Indonesia, right? It's US educated. So that's not really happening. I think what's happening is, in a lot of us, it's become the job to have for the best money. I've interviewed some people recently who've lost jobs at VC-backed startups. The money they want is, what investment bankers get who make huge profits for their companies. So the salary levels it's just got out of control. Right. The whole thing's got out of control. And that's what's created a big problem. So people need to get back in the lane and realize that, we want to make, in my company, our office is in BSD. Yeah. It's not in Ashton. We're not an investment bank. I've worked in finance. We had nice offices. We made a lot of profit. Yeah. Right? The reality is we don't need to be in Ashton. We can have 2 buildings in BSD. And I have 10,000 square feet, 150 people. Yeah. And I run I don't take I'm a founder, right? Yeah. So a founder to me is the founder. I don't take salary from the business. People look at me like I'm crazy. I say, well, I'm the founder, surely. I'm the investor. In BVT is a bit different because I'm also the investor. All right? So it's this idea that VCs put the money and then the founders take huge salaries. To me, it's set up to fail. It's not a sensible, and it's not a sensible business. And people now are turning on each other. I see some of the startups and the VCs turning on each other. Yeah. But reality is that it should never have been signed off running a business like that in the first place.
Very, very interesting insights and also very, very true. And at the same time, we're going back again to see that the new era is coming for startup and business, the new era of fundamental and sustainability. And we'll continue our conversation after the break. Thank you so much, Martyn.